Welcome back to Mr. Hall's Storytime. It is that time again. I think now, after doing a few videos, I think as well you'll be very impressed that I think I'm a YouTuber now. So if you didn't think I was cool before, or Mr. Cool, then I am definitely cool now because I'm a YouTuber. So also, if you check the blog, I'm going to post how big my sunflower's grown, and I know you've been growing your sunflowers as well. Or hopefully, or keep them alive. So if you have a look, maybe measure your one and see how big your sunflower is, and then you can compare. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to win the race, but I'm sure you might have something to say about it. Anyway, let's get back to Mr. Hall's Storytime. So, we are reading The Shrimp by Emily Smith. We got to the point where, is it Ben? Yeah, Ben has gone with his Aunt Jenna to Cornwall, which is the southwest of England, and he thinks he's seen a seal, but we'll find out. So we got to the point, there's a large shape moving across the water. Remember, this is him now, swimming in the water. So there's a large shape moving across the water. He stared at it. Could it be a seal? Surely not. He sat up excitedly and narrowed his eyes at it. But in a second he realised his seal was just someone snorkelling, of course. Ben settled down again and dug his hand in the grey pebbles. Then he heard a shout. Jenna stood at the bottom of the steps waving the fishing net. "Come on," she said. "Time for tea." For some reason, just before he got to his feet, he looked at the limpet-strewn pebbles round him. His eyes ran over dry seaweed, an old crisp packet, and some bits of coloured glass worn smooth by the sea. And his gaze stopped at a tiny pale shape. He frowned and picked it up. He expected to find it was a pebble or a bit of broken shell. But it wasn't a pebble or a bit of broken shell. It was a perfect cowrie shell. There's the word there as well. Cowrie. I wonder what a cowrie shell is. Ellen was in the kitchen when they got back. She knew at once what his shell was. "Wow, a cowrie? Did you find that here, Ben?" Ben nodded. "Just now on the pebbly beach." "Oh, clever you." Ellen admired the perfect little shell with its 3 brown spots. "Isn't it beautiful?" Then she called her husband. "Rick, come and have a look." Rick came into the kitchen and admired it too. "Hey, well done." Jenna was looking pleased but puzzled. "Is a cowrie good then?" "It certainly is," said Ellen. "I mean, are they rare?" "Well, I've always heard there are cowries here if you look hard enough, but all these years I've never found one." Ellen gave it a little sniff. "Not one?" There you go, that's him admiring the cowrie shell. Ben looked at her and an awful thought came to him. Ellen had been so welcoming and always cooked things he liked, and now he had a cowrie and she hadn't. He gulped. "Ellen?" "Yes, Ben?" He held out his hand. "You can have the cowrie if you like." It's very kind of him. Does he want something in return? "Oh, bless him," cried Ellen. "Bless him." She looked at Ben with dancing eyes. "I wouldn't dream of taking your cowrie, Ben, but it's very kind and generous of you to offer it to me." Ben smiled back at her. Phew. On his last day, he checked out the sandy beach after the tide went down and found a fine dog cockle. Then he grabbed his net and bucket and went rock pooling. Jenna had had enough of rock pooling by now, but she happily lay on the rock sunbathing and reading her book. There's in rock pooling, trying to find some creatures and shells in the rock pools. Ben hadn't caught anything new for some time now, but this time he did. Under a ledge in a big rock pool, he netted 2 large spider crabs. They looked weird. With lots of bits of green seaweed dangling from their legs and bodies, Ben decided to take them back to the house and bucket and study them. In the bucket and study them. Here's the spider crabs. He found a see-through bowl in the kitchen and tipped them in. He watched them moving around and drew a not very good picture of one of his notebooks. "Supper," said Ellen, when she saw the crabs in the bowl. "Only joking," she added, as she saw the look on Ben's face. "Hey, Ben, Jenna stuck her head round the door and threw his swimming trunks at his head. "Come with me and Dave for a last surf." He went. He loved holding onto the board as a wave carried him swooshing towards the shore, even if he did sometimes get a mouthful of water. And spent surfing and the waves of Cornwall. When he got back, he suddenly remembered his spider crabs. They were still in the bowl, hardly moving now, and not looking too happy. He knew he ought to return them to the sea. Ben put them back into his bucket, told Jenna what he was doing, and set off. He had decided to go to the sandy beach which was closest, but then he felt uncertain. He had caught the spider crabs in a rock pool. Shouldn't he return them to a rock pool? They might not survive in the open sea. He frowned and turned towards the rock pools. It shouldn't take too much longer. The tide was coming up. He noticed as he picked his way over the rocks. He found a nice deep pool and knelt down at its edge. Then he held his bucket over the water and gently tipped his crabs in. "Goodbye, crabs," he said. He rose to his feet, and as he did, he heard a cry. Cry. I wonder who's crying. Chapter 7. Ben froze. The bucket swung from his hand. Had he imagined a cry? But no, there it was again, a sort of meowing sound, an unhappy meowing sound. What was it? An animal? A human? A wounded seabird? Ben looked around. He was all alone. There was no one else near on the rocks. Suddenly he felt fear. His heart was hammering. He was the shrimp now, all right. He shouldn't have come so far without telling Jenna. Then he looked back up the cliff path. He wasn't so alone after all. There were several walkers not that far away. A little girl in a red anorak was running along with a grown-up trying to catch up. An old couple sat on a bench looking out to sea. Suddenly he felt better. More like Ben again. There you go. There's the other people on the beach. He heard the meowing sound again and drew a breath. "Hello?" he said. There was a scratching, and he heard whimpering. He took a few steps nearer, poised to fly at any moment. Then he heard another whimper, louder, and somehow hollow sounding. It seemed to be coming from a deep cleft in the rocks about 3 meters away. Slowly Ben picked his way over to the cleft, heart thumping. He knelt on the edge and peered down. Below at the bottom of a small gully, gazing up at him with dark eyes, was a little dog. It was a young dog, hardly more than a puppy, with a leather collar round his neck. Ben saw at once what had happened. Somehow it had fallen down and had been unable to get out, up the steep rock sides. "It's okay, boy," he said. "I'll get you out." Then Ben had a shock. He heard a wave crash and looked up to see seawater splashing over the rocks only a couple of meters away. He hadn't realised how fast the tide had been rising. Within minutes it would be pouring into the gully that had trapped the little dog. He had come just in time. The puppy whimpered again, as if it knew how close the danger was. Carefully, Ben lowered himself into the gully. He made sure he found 2 good footholds. The puppy watched, shivering. Then Ben scooped it up and heaved it up on top of the rock. The puppy stumbled slightly, but then found its feet. It wasn't injured. Ben could see that. With a glance at the sea spray on a nearby rock, he hauled himself up and out. As Ben stood on top of the rock again, he felt a rush of triumph. That's him getting him out. "Well done, Ben." "Come on, boy," he said to the puppy, and together they set off towards the steps. It always waited for him, not running on. It clearly thought it best to stick close to its rescuer. As they climbed the steps, Ben's feeling of triumph was replaced by doubts. What should he do now? What would Ellen say when he turned up with a strange dog? but he needn't have worried. Even before he had climbed halfway up, he heard a shout. "Lottie! Look, someone's found Lottie!" The little girl in the red anorak came running along the path. Ben could see that her face was red too from crying, but now her eyes were shining. And that brings us to the end of chapter 7, and next time is going to be chapter 8. Thank you again for listening. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the weather again. It's going to be beautiful. And remember, tomorrow is St. George's Day, so see if you can celebrate St. George's Day or learn a bit about it in some way. Okay, thank you and goodbye.